The problem with consumer culture is all our goals become consumption centric. When we give our energies to activities that make us money, we feel like we're doing something productive. However, not everything beneficial in your life is wealth centric. Meeting an old friend after a very long time is a very therapeutic experience, even if you're not getting paid to do so. However, since our consciousness is affected by consumerism, now we don't want to inconvenience ourselves to meet our friends. I read somewhere that if you get 100 views on a video, don't take it lightly, because imagine what it is like to have 100 people in an audience listening to you talk. Actually, that's the wrong analogy, because when someone comes to listen to you talking, that person has inconvenienced himself or herself. 100 people gathered in an auditorium to listen to you is not the same thing as 100 people viewing your content on a mobile phone. Because to view your content on a mobile phone, a person does not have to significantly inconvenience himself or herself. As opposed to this, when someone pays to hear you speaking in public, they have to leave their house and they have to go to the venue. Then they have to sit there, and after the talk is over, they have to leave for their home again. They have to inconvenience themselves to a certain extent. Now, because consumerism is the predominant force in our consciousness right now, any activity that does not contribute to wealth building is automatically labeled as frivolous or unproductive, either consciously or unconsciously. And this is the exact reason you're probably not meeting your friends as much as you would like to, because you're always running calculations on how to make more money, either through a side hustle or through a promotion at work. And you're telling yourself that these are the prime years of your youth where you have the most amount of energy. So after a decade or two, when you have accumulated a lot, you'll be able to relax and then have time to socialize. What you don't realize is that time is getting spent, nevertheless, whether you choose to socialize or not. And that decade or two that was spent in hustle is the decade or two that was left out on strengthening and nourishing certain bonds, which would have reaped their rewards 2 decades later. When you enter your 60s, 70s, or 80s, and when money won't be a problem for you, you will regret not having bonds that are deep enough. You will regret not investing time in friends who could now come over to your place for lunch or for dinner, or who could take a vacation with you to a farmhouse. This was a skill. This kind of relationship building was a skill that was present in the previous generations, either because families were very large or because the minds of people a few generations back was not completely utilitarian. I remember as a child, my father would be invited to lunch or to dinner to the house of an ex boss under whom he was no longer working. But since he had nurtured those relations, they were still happy to have him over, and he was quite happy to take me and my mom to their place, and we would have lunch or dinner, whatever the case may be. This is not found in the current generation. We don't go to each other's places so much as we go and meet at a cafe or at a restaurant. Either is fine, but we're simply not meeting up enough because we're going all in on wealth accumulation. And this is going to have repercussions. We're not going to give ourselves enough time to cultivate our intellectual curiosity. We're not going to spend enough time immersed in art and literature. We're not going to spend enough time in building a strong and healthy body. And all this is going to have repercussions. And the only people who'll be saved from that are those who see a message like mine and decide to not entirely abandon what they're doing, but to put a small break on the extent of their hustle. And if they do that, they'll save their souls in a certain sense. If not, the alternate would be to go all in on this career, become very one dimensional, but then reap the rewards of that in terms of the potential bonds lost, in terms of time not given to art, music, or literature. And some people are completely fine with that payoff. For some people in their life, art, literature, and music don't hold much value. So these people will be okay with the outcome. But the question is, are you going to be okay with that outcome? Possibly not, because you are a well rounded person. I'm not saying that the other kind of person who's hustling and going all in on his hustle is doing something wrong. He or she is built for that. But if you're not built for that and yet you believe that that's what you must do, you'll become very miserable 10 years or 20 years down the line, even if you are successful by conventional standards.